In today's video, I'm going to show you how I mixed a Lil Baby type beat. You don't want to miss it. What's up YouTube, it's your girl Banger Girl, and I'm back with another banger. If you're new to my channel, I just want to welcome you. If you're returning back to my channel, welcome back, Banger Gang. Like the title says, I'm going to show you how I mixed a Lil Baby type beat. I'm going to take you through how I organize my track. I'm going to take you through the steps that I normally use when I'm mixing a project. And hopefully, as always, when I'm done with this mix, my friend Sharif, who's an engineer, a producer in the industry, will critique my beat mix and give me some feedbacks. So I hope you're ready. Get yourself something to drink. Get your headphones, and without further ado, let's get it. All right, y'all, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the track first, just so you get the sense of the track and the feel of it, and then we're gonna get straight into the mix.
Banger Girl.
So as you can see, I color coded my track. I do this just for organization purposes. It just makes it easier to identify which section of the instrumentation you're actually focusing on. So normally when I start mixing my tracks, I want to make sure that I first level all of my instruments. So usually what I do is I set all of the faders to 0. So I would essentially highlight all these faders and then drop it down to 0. Then what I would do is I would start by adding each instrument one by one. I start with the drums. So I normally start with the kick drum and I get it to a level where I like where it's sitting in the mix. Because as you know, with most trap, hip hop, rap style beats, the percussive elements are one of the focal points of the track. Obviously, this is not like a steadfast rule. You can have whatever instruments you want in the front of the track, but for me, I like to kind of keep the kick drum and the 808 as a pulse of the track, and then everything else fills around it. I start out with the kick drum and I get it to a level that I want, and then once I get the kick drum to a level that I like, I bring in the 808. I want the 808 to sit right under the kick drum. So I'm leveling the faders. I'm leveling the faders to get it into a position that I kind of like. Then I bring in the snare. Sometimes I have 2 snares. In this case, I have a rim shot. So I bring it in. But if you notice, everything stays kind of under the kick drum and the 808. It doesn't really overpower those instruments. I bring in my closed hat and my open hat. So once I got the percussive elements at a volume level that I like, then I start getting into the mixing of the actual track. Key with mixing is making sure that all the sounds sound well together. They sound good together. They sound cohesive. So for that reason, you want to mix the drum elements in while everything is playing. I usually start out with the kick drum, like I stated. But I have everything playing. So now what I start doing is I start adding some mixing effects to my individual instruments. For the most part, I use a lot of Logic stock plugins. I think they're really good. I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of other plugins, Wave, Slate Digital. I have those, but I really truly like using Logic Pro plugins. I think that they get the job done. So if you're a new producer and you feel like, hey, I don't have the money to buy all these plugins, listen, get familiar with the plugins that your DAW provides first. Because once you know how to use the plugins in your DAW, then when you start to get a little bit more advanced, you can start using third-party plugins and it won't be such a learning curve. So I usually start by putting my EQ first. I use the Logic Pro's Vintage Console EQ. So I add the vintage EQ and then I put a compressor. And what I did for the compressor is I use the vintage FET compressor. FET compressors are really, really good on like percussive elements. Now, after I mix the kick drum, I usually go to the 808. That's just my like stylistic approach. I feel like the kick drum is the pulse and I feel like the 808 is the heart. So again, I added a vintage console EQ. I added the vintage FET compressor, and these are all Logic stock plugins. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know, I like how the channel EQ sounds on the rest of my tracks for the most part. For the rest of my percussive elements, I kind of go with Logic Pro's channel EQ. The cool thing about the channel EQ is when you have the analyzer button activated, you can see where the instrument's frequency lie. So as you know, snares, rim shots, those type of instruments, they kind of lie in the mid to high range. So for that reason, I cut out a lot of the lows and I cut out a lot of the highs, and then I just boosted around the 801K space and the 4K space. I added just another compressor, the vintage FET compressor. I like to add a little distortion on my compressor. It just adds like a little extra grittiness to it. And again, for the rim shot, it's pretty similar. You know, kind of like the same settings that I put on my snare. They live in the same frequency. Now, because the snare and the rim shot are kind of taking up the same frequency space, all I did was pan my rim shot to the right, and that's just easily activated by just clicking on the track you want to click and then just hovering your mouse in the direction that you want the pan to go. So I have this at plus 19. For the open hat and the closed hat, just a rule of thumb, I usually cut out a lot of the lows and then just boost the high at that like 4K frequency. And then the compressor, I just add like a light compressor. As you can see, I didn't do anything too crazy. Now I have this distorted shaker. I pretty much kept it the same as my open hi-hat and closed hi-hat. But what I did was I boosted the volume of the channel EQ just because it was really low. I had this Magic Dice plugin just to add some color to the actual shaker. It's by Baby Audio. It's free, so go to Baby Audio, get you some of their free plugins. They're really good. I put all of my instruments in what they call a track stack in Logic. What you would do is select all of your tracks, and then you would right click, and you see this option that says create a track stack. You press create a track stack, and it gives you the option of a folder stack or a summing stack. When you click a summing stack, which is what I clicked in this case, what it does is it creates the folder, but it also creates the bus for you. So in other words, all of my drum instruments are going out of bus 1. And that's pretty cool because it creates the bus right here and it's right next to my drums. After I finished, getting the levels right on my drums and I added my EQ and my compressor, I then added a plate reverb just to add just a little bit more texture to my drum elements. And the reverb that I used is IK Multimedia's TR5 plate, and I just went with a plate preset. I don't know why the plate is not up here. The classic preset. And then lastly, what I did on my drum bus is I just added a tape effect. I just like to add tape effects to my drums because not only does it add like a kind of like a vintage sound to it, but it glues everything together. And I went with the TR5 Tape Machine 440. This is an IK plugin. There's a lot of free ones. I can drop a link to some of the free ones if you want me to do that. But yeah, I paid for this and I just like the way it sounds. All right, so what I did next is I went to the bells. So I have this filter bell. Let me mute the drums for a second. I have again the Magic Dice plugin. And then I have this channel EQ. I just cut out a lot of those lows because this is kind of where I didn't want it to compete with, you know, that low end frequency. Got the kick drum in this area, and then I cut out some of the highs. Now, when I was making this beat in the creative process, I duplicated this bell. And I just added like just kind of variation to it. And again, I have the Magic Dice plugin and I have a channel EQ. Now on the filter, the second filter bell, if you notice, I boosted at the around 880 hertz. I didn't boost it in this one, but I kind of wanted to create separation between these two instruments because they're pretty much the same. And then on my third bell, I have the drip plugin, the Apex. And then I have a channel EQ. Again, I just boosted a little bit and cut out some lows and cut out some highs. I created a track stack for the bells. And what it did was send my 3 bell instruments to bus 3. And on bus 3, I added Slate Digital's Fresh Air. And then I added a compressor. Now the Fresh Air is kind of like, I don't know, it's like a hybrid between like a saturator. So it boosts some of the elements, but then it also adds like little sparkles. And then I just added like some compression on my bell bus. When you're dealing with, sometimes when you're dealing with melodic instruments, the dynamic range is very wide. Like you have some high elements, like some loud elements, some low elements. So I just added a compressor to just kind of bring it kind of a little bit more leveled. I got my volume to where I wanted. I started adding my EQs. And what I did for the filter bell is I just panned it a little bit to the left, and then what I did for the other filter bells, panned it to the right, so they're not competing with each other for room in the space. So now when we add the bells to the drums, this is how it sounds. So now if you notice, everything is kind of sitting cool, like it's cohesive. Nothing is overpowering each other. And that's why you have to make sure you get your volume faders at a good level. You want every element of the track to have its own place and to stand out. Not everything needs to be loud or in the front, but you want the listener to be able to hear it and get the whole picture. All right, so then we just go to the synth leads. After I made sure that I had the volumes where I wanted it, I got to mixing each individual instrument. I have the channel EQ cutting out some of those lows and highs. And then I have my compressor. Now, if you notice, when I started getting to the melody, the melodic portion of the song, I went to this Platinum Digital compressor. I did that because the Platinum Digital compressor, it sounds good on melodies. Like the FETs are pretty much known for like percussive elements, and this Logic compressor, I like to use it on my melodies. So now I have this flute. I added my EQ. Again, the compressor. I duplicated that same flute and just tweaked it a little bit. Now on the flute, what I did was I created a bus, and I have this Logic Pro stereo delay. The speed of the delay on the left side is a half a note, and then the speed on the right side is 1/8. I know that my melody lives in like this mid-high range, so I just, basically disregard the lows. So you might not be able to hear it now, but when I stop it, you still hear it. And that's cool because when I transition to like another space of the project, you'll hear like that extra little delay. Now I keep focusing on like volume levels because I want to stress the importance of making sure that everything is in the right place. And that's why when you play all your instruments together, you have a cohesive sounding mix and nothing's overpowering each other because you made sure to level everything before you started mixing. And while you're mixing, like while you're mixing your drums, while you start adding all these different elements, the melody, the bells, you still want to make sure that while you're mixing and adding your channel EQ and your compressors, that you're still checking the level, the volume levels. If something sounds too loud after you start adding the effects, then just lower it. Or if something sounds too low, then higher. But you just want to make sure that everything is level. I have the Magic Dice plugin on this ambient texture. And then I have a channel EQ. Again, I took out the lows, took out the highs, and then I boosted a little bit at this mid-high range. And then on this sound, I have my trusty drip plugin. And I have my channel EQ. So that's basically all I did for the actual specific elements of the track. Last but not least, on my stereo track, I added Slate Digital's tape machine. I just boosted the input a little bit, boosted the output a little bit. I added the graphic EQ, which is just, you know, to just add a little bit of boosting to specific parts of the track. And then I added the IK limiter. And that's how I mixed a Lil Baby type beat. I'm gonna send this track to my friend Sharif, and we're gonna hop on a Zoom, and he's going to mix it and give me some feedback so I can know where I need to improve, and so you guys can hear some of the feedback and maybe learn from that aspect as well. You guys seem to be enjoying my mixing videos, my mixing tutorials, and my beat making videos, so I'm definitely gonna do more of that. If you want me to do like a Logic Pro 101 type tutorial, let me know. If you want me to do anything that might benefit you in your music production experience, let me know. Just leave a comment and I'll definitely get that out to you guys. I want to thank you guys for giving me my 100 subscribers. I was trying to get to 100 subscribers for the longest time, and I'm glad and happy to say that I'm past 100 subscribers. So now the goal is like 500 subscribers. I appreciate everybody who's been showing me love on my videos and means so much. You know, this was like kind of like, I'm not gonna say a struggle for me, but I never really kind of saw myself being on YouTube. I'm the type of person who likes to be behind the camera, but I realized in 2023, if you want to get anything out there, you kind of have to put yourself out there with it. So with that being stated, please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, stay safe, keep creating, peace.